Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Bula Mae Robertson was a doting mother to two teenage girls in 1993. Her oldest daughter was attending college, and Bula was so proud of her. Bula was a hardworking single mom, but her children never wanted for anything. She always took her role very seriously as a mother, and she wanted her girls to grow up and do well in the world. In the fall of 1993, Bula had recently undergone surgery. By early October, Bula was feeling better, but still recovering. However, on October 4th, 1993, Bula felt well enough to go out and get her hair done that day. Later that night, Bula made an odd stop at a friend's house. Meanwhile, her 15-year-old daughter was back at home waiting for her mother's return. But her mom never came home. This was extremely unusual, and the next morning when Bula's oldest daughter came by the house and found that Bula was still not home, they decided they had to call and report her as missing. Their mother wasn't even fully back to herself yet after this surgery, and she would never, ever not come home to her daughter. Bula Robertson had disappeared. Where is Bula Mae Robertson? Thank you so much for being here today and for listening to Bula's story. Before we dive in, I want to say there is very, very little information publicized on Bula's case. And what has been reported on is often just repeated statements. But I do want to give a shout out to the Fall Line podcast. This was the only source, outside of a few vague news articles, that really seemed to give Bula's story the effort it needs. Now let's get into the story of Bula Robertson. Bula Mae Robertson was born into a large family in Georgia. She had several brothers and sisters, and they all remained close, even into adulthood. Family gatherings were the norm in this family, and they all seemed to enjoy spending time with each other. Bula went on to have two daughters, which she would raise on her own as a single mother. Of course, she had a large family network behind her, and she was determined to raise her girls right. She had hopes that they would become good people and go and do good things in life, and most of all, that they would be happy. And they were. Bula was not only a good mom, however, she was also a good friend. Those she knew would remark on how she always went out of her way to help others, even when she herself didn't have much. In 1993, Bula and her daughters had moved to Warner Robins, Georgia. Her 15-year-old daughter was in high school, and her older daughter, now 19, was in college. Bula was very proud of her hardworking girls. That fall, Bula had gone in to have a surgical procedure done. Recovery would take some time, but she knew she'd have the help of her family to get through it. On October 4th, 1993, Bula was feeling well enough to leave the house for a bit and go have her hair done. She got a drastic change in her hairstyle. She had her stylist shave the back and sides of her hair and put blonde streaks in the top. Bula didn't come back home after the appointment, however. In fact, no one knows where she might have gone afterwards, but she did show up at a friend's house just after midnight. Now, what's odd about this encounter, aside from the late hour, is that we don't know why she went there. No one has ever really come forward to give an exact reason for her stop there. And then, after that, Bula left into the night and vanished. Now, right away, I wondered about her vehicle. Was she in a car? Was it her car? Was she in someone else's car? Or was she walking? There is no information regarding a car or a vehicle being found or one being missing with Bula, but we do know that she left the friend's house that night, well, actually in the very early morning hours of October 5th, 1993. The next morning, her older daughter came home from college. Her sister told her that mom had never come home the night before. Now, instantly they were worried because this is not only really out of character for their mom, but she was still in recovery from her surgery. She wasn't in any shape to be out and about for any length of time. They decided they had to call the Warner Robins police and report their mom as missing. It seems that law enforcement wasn't too aggressive in searching for Bula at the time, especially as they talked to people who said they saw her around Old Town in Warner Robins, near the Robins Motel, which today is no longer there. This was a known area for drugs and crime at that time, so that brings up the question of substance abuse and Bula Robertson. For the most part, many people state that Bula was not into substances at all, and that whole sighting of Bula down in Old Town at that hotel just didn't make any sense to them. But there were others who said, yes, it made complete sense. Now, there's three main thoughts that pop into my head when I hear this. Number one, Bula just had surgery recently. Could she have possibly become addicted to painkillers, or was she in need of something else to ease her pain? Something which led her to Old Town. Or number two, Bula might have had a secret part of her life that many people didn't know about. This is not uncommon, for sure. Was Bula struggling with substance abuse, and was she able to hide it from her family? This certainly does happen a lot and would not be unheard of. Or number three, these sightings and reports of Bula being down there in Old Town are just wrong. I mean, how certain are we that Bula was actually there? As authorities dug deeper, however, they started to hear a troubling rumor over and over and over. This rumor, told to authorities by several people known to frequent the Old Town area, stated that Bula was in debt to someone there. This young man, only described to the public as a young man in his young 20s, had allegedly killed Bula and put her in the trunk of his car. Not only that, he apparently was bragging about it, and some even claimed that he had shown people the body. These witnesses also said that after some time, this young man eventually drove to a rural part of Georgia and buried her body. Now, this man was no stranger to police. Even though he was young, he was a known criminal in the area. When this information made its way to detectives, they believed it very well could be the truth. There was enough people saying this that they believed it had merit, but they didn't have any concrete evidence. And many people didn't want to come forward and give statements publicly, or even at all, and possibly put themselves in danger. This was perhaps a dangerous criminal who had maybe killed before. It makes sense to me that people would be scared. So at this point, Bula's case went cold. When Bula disappeared, she was living in Warner Robins in a quiet little residential neighborhood. Warner Robins is located in central Georgia, perhaps best known for the Warner Robins Air Force Base. The population of Warner Robins today is around 80,000 residents, and in large part due to that Air Force Base, is known as a transient town, meaning many people come and go within the city. The area where Bula was possibly last seen, the Old Town area, is just east of her home. It was a known area for crime and drugs, and it sits right across from the Air Force Base. If the story is true, however, that this person of interest took Bula's body somewhere rural and buried her, she could be almost anywhere. While Georgia certainly has its fair share of big cities, there are plenty of rural areas throughout the entire state. In fact, much of the state is rural. While Bula's case is the oldest unsolved missing person case in Warner Robins, hers isn't the only one. Jesus Velez, a 35-year-old man who was last seen on September 5th, 2020. His black Chevrolet Tahoe was later found abandoned on a dirt road in neighboring Crawford County, and investigators discovered a day and night security type camera inside the vehicle that appeared to have been unplugged. His disappearance is a complete mystery to this day. Another case is Jesse Stephen Hartley, who disappeared in the summer of 2007 from Warner Robins when he was about 21 years old. According to the Charlie Project profile, details around his disappearance are scant. He was only reported missing months later, and little evidence has emerged since. Additionally, Valerie Coates was reported missing from the area as well. Probate court records from 1995 indicate that she is believed deceased. Her case also remains a lingering mystery in that area. And the most recent disappearance out of Warner Robins is that of Kiara Worsley. Kiara Worsley is in her 30s and hasn't been seen since June of 2025 when she was at the Emory Healthcare facility in Warner Robins. She apparently walked out of that facility and was never seen again. Of course, I do wish I had more to tell you about Bula and her disappearance, but this is really all we know. A loving mother walked out of her home to go to a hair salon appointment and never makes it home to her daughters. Did something bad happen to Bula out there? If so, what? And by whom? Authorities have stated that the person of interest in Bula's case is now incarcerated, and they hope that witnesses might feel more comfortable coming forward, knowing that that is the case. And there is an $8,000 reward for information leading to Bula. Bula Mae Robertson is described as a Black female standing 5'4" tall and weighing around 110 pounds when she was last seen back in 1993. She had black hair, but the day she disappeared, she had it shaved and dyed blonde on the top. Bula has brown eyes and pierced ears. Bula was last seen at her home on Peachtree Circle, or perhaps in the Old Town area of Warner Robins. Bula was 37 years old at the time she went missing. Her two teenage daughters, whom she loved so much, have had to become adults on their own and to live their lives without their mother by their side. Despite the number of years that have passed by, they are still hopeful that one day they will have answers on what happened to their mom. Thank you so much for listening to Bula's story today and for supporting our show. If you have any case suggestions for us, be sure to send that over to us either via the socials or email me anytime at canwefindthem@gmail.com. We always welcome any feedback as well, or any other case information that you might have on any of the cases that we've covered previously. Thank you again for listening to Bula's story today and for supporting our show. A big shout out once again to the Fall Line podcast, as well as the Charlie Project, WGXA, 41 NBC News, and the Macon Regional Crime Stoppers. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing persons story. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.